Hey guys, it's Amy here, and today I bring you the Classics book tag. So I'm a big lover and advocate for reading classics. I think they're absolutely fantastic. They're one of my favourite things to pick up and enjoy, and so I'm surprised I haven't done this classics tag before. We have 10 questions, so let's just jump into it. The first one is an overhyped classic you really didn't like. Now I really struggled for an answer with this one, and I've kind of had to skew the question because this book I did enjoy, I just didn't love it as much as other people did. So that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. In comparison to Jane Eyre and The Tenant of Woodville Hall by Emily's sisters, I thought this book was like so much like further down my list of favourites. Like I didn't particularly enjoy the characters, I didn't particularly enjoy what was happening. I thought it was okay, but it wasn't amazing. Question number 2 is favourite time period to read about. Now I think I'm gonna have to be pretty broad here and go from like the late Victorians to like modern classic time. So I read like quite a wide amount of classic stuff. Some of my favourites would be like the Brontes, Jane Austen, Wilkie Collins, those kind of era, Thomas Hardy, those like ones, but then also I love reading things like Agatha Christie and like more modern day ones like the early kind of 1900s and things like that. So yes, I think I'm just gonna have to say Victorian era onwards. Question number 3 is favourite fairy tale. I had a big think about this one because I don't really remember reading a lot of fairy tales when I was younger, and they definitely weren't like the original like Grimm's fairy tale or Hans Christian Andersen or those kind of things. I'm sure I did read them, I just don't have like fond memories, like I don't have like a favourite one. One of the ones I do recall reading a lot though was Hansel and Gretel. So I guess we could say Hansel and Gretel is my favourite, although I don't like look back with fond memories of reading Hansel and Gretel as a child. I just don't think I really read a lot of like of the classic fairy tales when I was younger. I read a lot of other things and have only really read the fairy tales like Grimm's ones as an adult. Question number 4 is what is the most embarrassing classic you haven't read yet? Okay, so I wouldn't say I really get embarrassed about books that I haven't read yet because hey, I've got a whole life to read all these books if I want to. If I was that embarrassed about it, I'd be reading it right now, wouldn't I? But I would say that I have like 5 or 6 books by Charles Dickens on my shelf, like chunky, proper chunky ones. They take up like a whole section of my bookshelf, and the only book I've ever read from Charles Dickens is The Christmas Carol, which is like this big. It's not very big at all, and I thought it was okay, but I didn't love his writing style, so I have a feeling I'm never going to read all these big chunky Charles Dickens books that I got there. So I guess that's kind of embarrassing because I bought them thinking, oh yes, Charles Dickens, I should educate myself and read like this really renowned author and everyone loves him and I'm gonna love him as well. And I just don't know if I am gonna love him, and I want to read them. I might read one of the smaller ones. I've got like A Tale of Two Cities and Great Expectations, so I might try those and see how I go with them. I may really love them, I don't know. I just had that experience with The Christmas Carol and I didn't like the way that he like listed stuff all the time. Like I hate it when authors like list things. Like give me a reason of why you're listing this to me. I don't need a list of stuff. Like just tell me like an overview of what's going on. I don't need a list. So yes, I guess Charles Dickens is the answer to that. Question number 5 is top 5 classics you'd like to read soon. Okay, I've got a whole little pile of books here for you. Firstly we have Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. I read Far From the Madding Crowd a couple of years ago, really enjoyed it, then quickly bought this one and have yet to read it yet. So I definitely think this needs to be read at some point soon. I will let you know. Next we have Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Again, I'm trying to read all of Jane Austen's books by the end of the year. I think I only have this one and Sense and Sensibility left, so I think it's doable. This one is a bit of a chunker though, so we'll have to see. I also think these editions are stunning. Moving on to some modern classics. Firstly we have Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. This one I really want to read. It's been on my bookshelf for a really long time, and one of the main reasons why I want to read this one is because I want to read this next book, which is also a classic, a modern classic, but it's a non-fiction book, and that is Reading Lolita in Tehran by Yazar Nafisi. This one has been on my shelf for a really long time as well, but obviously I want to read this one before I read this one because this one is mentioned in this one. Do you get what I mean? I need to kind of read this one to be able to understand this one, I think. And the final one I have here is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I read Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck in GCSE level, which was like years and years ago when I was in school. I really enjoyed it, and this one I've heard so many good things about. In fact, I know... Oh, holy moly. Literally have an alarm clock going off. It's 12:30. Why does it say rise and shine? I've never woken up in my life at 12:30. Don't know what's going on there, how mysterious. What was I saying? John Steinbeck, yeah, so I read him in school, really enjoyed it, and this one I believe is a lot of people's favourite book. I've heard so many people say that they love this book, but it is a bit of a mission because it is huge and the writing is pretty small, so yes, hopefully, who knows, I might not read it this year, but it's on my shelf, I will read it at some point. Question number 6 is favourite modern book or series based on a classic. Now, I don't think I've got an answer for this one because I haven't really read, or I can't remember if I've read, something that is taken from a classic, if you get what I mean. Well, I probably have, I just don't realise it. If you have any recommendations for things, let me know. I mean, I've read Cinder by Marissa Meyer, didn't love that book though, and that was kind of taken from like fairy tales, Cinderella and things like that, so I'm not sure. Let me know if you've got any recommendations of things that you think were excellent. I only want the excellent ones taken from classics. Question number 7 is favourite movie version or TV series based on a classic. Again, you guys know I don't really watch a lot of TV, but my favourite adaptation, I'd have to say, was the BBC miniseries of Pride and Prejudice, which was just, oh, it was lovely. Like, because I watched that and then I watched the film, which I very, very rarely do, but I thought the miniseries was much better than the film. I thought it was fantastic. Question number 8 is worst classic to movie adaptation. Again, I don't know. I haven't watched many, I'm just a bit useless. I spend my time reading rather than watching TV, which, you know, I don't know, I don't have an answer. Sorry everyone! Question number 9 is favourite editions that you'd like to collect more classics from. Oh my god, I love this question. Okay, well, I've got so many. Okay, so I love these vintage classics ones, these little tiny people one. I think they're beautiful. The only problem I have is that they are just really annoying for sitting on shelves because they're so much shorter than all the books. But if I could get like a huge collection of them and then I could just dedicate one shelf to these short books, that wouldn't bother me so much. They need to bring out more of these basically. I do really love these ones with the photography on, if the photography that's been chosen is good. Some of my favourite ones of those are the Shirley Jackson ones from like this series. I think they're stunning. The Virago Modern Classic hardback editions of various different authors. I'm collecting Daphne du Maurier. They are all stunning. This one is slightly less, but I think the colour of this one isn't great, but the other ones are gorgeous in this series. Here's Jamaica Inn and My Cousin Rachel, just to show you how gorgeous these are. I want all of her books in these editions. It's a shame that they seem to have only just brought out a few, and then the other ones are all in paperback, so I don't know, I might have to just move over to paperback. Then obviously there's the standard Penguin English Library editions, which I think are gorgeous. This is A Room with a View and Far From the Madding Crowd. Really, really pretty. And finally, these Puffin in Bloom ones, which are gorgeous. I really, really love them. These are like children's classics. I love children's classics. I'm a big fan of reading them, especially if you're a newbie reader to classics and you don't really know where to begin and you think that classics are like a really intimidating thing to read and really difficult. Read one of these. These are very easy to read. They're really cute, wonderful, beautiful stories. This one is one of my all-time favourite books. This is just a stunning read. Let's move on to the final question. Question number 10 is an underhyped classic you'd recommend to everybody. Okay, so I think I'm just going to recommend you an author because I don't hear a lot of people talking about him, and that is Wilkie Collins. Wilkie Collins was a good old pal of Charles Dickens. Yeah, I find Wilkie Collins's writing a lot funner to read than Charles Dickens. Although maybe I can't be that much of a judge because I've only read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So the way that I describe Wilkie Collins is like Thomas Hardy, Jane Austen characters and like the setting and things combined with Agatha Christie's intrigue and mystery and murder and craziness, all in one combined beautifulness. The Moonstone is brilliant. The Woman in White I think is my favourite from Wilkie Collins. So I would highly recommend him if you haven't read him at all. So there we go. Those were all the questions. I'd love to hear your answers down below. Let me know if you've got any recommendations for classics, modern classics, all of it. Come chat to me. As always, I will leave links to Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, everything I've mentioned today down below. I hope you're all having a fantastic day and I will see you soon. Bye!